Hey Luke,
Andrew, how are you?
how are you? Very well, and you? Long time no see.
Yeah, likewise, yeah. It's been a while,
Yeah,
couple of years.
well, it was in San Diego about 2016, right? Somewhere there.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah.
All right, Luke, we're going to kick off. I just need to do some formalities because what I do is I convert this into a podcast as well so that the guys can listen. I'm learning as I go, so I've now got to the point where I've actually been able to convert these interviews into podcasts. So we're making progress. All
Good
right,
for you. You're doing better than I am then, so I'll leave the technicalities to you.
All right, but I'm just gonna start with some formalities just to start and end the interview. So I'm going to start now. My name's Andrew McKenna. I'm the founder of the African Turf Academy. I started this series during our lockdown period just to interview some of the leading players or role players in the golf industry, turf industry around the world. Today we're joined by Luke Partridge, who's the course superintendent at Manly Golf Club in Sydney, Australia, which is our first Aussie guest. So thanks for joining us, Luke. And Luke has walked he's going to tell us about it, but he's walked the journey that some of our students want to walk through Ohio State, the Emirates Golf Club, which has been a partner or a supporter of the program. So it's time to bring in Luke. So thanks, Luke, for joining us. What's the time there? 8 o'clock?
Yeah, 8 o'clock in the evening, Andrew. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Have you got an echo?
No, all good.
You're good. All right, so let's start with a few quick questions. Rugby or cricket?
Oh, geez, cricket. Yeah, cricket.
Okay. Augusta or St Andrews?
Augusta. Only because
Okay.
I've been there and I haven't been to St Andrews.
Okay. And Jack or Tiger?
Oh, well, I'm fortunate to say that I've been lucky enough to meet both of them.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'd have to say Tiger. Yeah.
Okay. Why is that?
Yeah, a bit more relatable, I suppose. He's more my generation. I've sort of grown up seeing him more than I suppose I saw Jack. But I was part of a construction on a Nicholas design golf course in New Zealand, so I got to meet him there when he came to do the formal opening.
Okay. All right, cool. So what I'm wanting to find out from you today, really, just for everyone in the industry who's watching and our students, is your journey through the industry, how you got into golf, how you ended up in greenkeeping, and how it took you. So how did you start the golf journey?
Well, actually, mine was the other way around, as opposed to, I suppose, how a lot of people do it. They are keen golfers that want to work in the golf industry. I was actually a cricketer growing up and played a bit of cricket and Aussie rules football, and ended up being a cricket pitch curator for the first probably 3 years of my apprenticeship for a local club, and we had the Aussie rules club attached to the cricket club. So in the winter I'd have the Aussie rules pitch or field, and in the summer obviously the cricket. We also had lawn bowls and other surfaces that we looked after, and I got into golf courses sort of after the third year of my apprenticeship, and became interested in golf through being a greenkeeper. So it was a bit of a roundabout kind of way of getting there.
Okay. So one of the things I touched on here is the connection between playing golf and being able to manage a golf course. So from your cricket days, playing cricket helped you produce a good cricket pitch, right?
Yeah, I think it helps you understand what goes into into a good cricket pitch, and you look at. Do you know Nathan Lyon, the off spinner for Australia? Yeah. He was a curator.
The one who fumbled the ball when he was going to get Stokes out in the Ashes.
Yeah, that's probably the one. Yeah, he was a curator back in his day.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not uncommon.
Yeah. So the golf side, you we'll touch on it later, but it's something that I'm quite passionate about, getting the good young golfers to become golf course superintendents as well, so they understand the game and they can produce the golf course for the game.
Yeah, look, my golf has never set the world on fire, let's put it that way, but I certainly think that, I mean, if you're a good golfer as a superintendent, it helps you no end with, you know, connecting with your membership, particularly committee members, general managers, networking inside of, you know, clubs that you either work for or don't work for. It just helps. And if there's one thing that I would have done differently in my career was spend a little bit more time playing golf. But you know, I'm still young, so you know, there's still time for me.
You can go down your local PGA Pro and get some lessons.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Although I've had 2 back surgeries this year, so I'm not having a good run, unfortunately.
Okay, that's not good for golf. All right, so you started in Australia and then you headed to Ohio State University on that internship, right? And you joined Mike O'Keefe.
Yeah, that's right. So in 2005, I was fortunate enough to receive a scholarship to go over to the Ohio program. So it was called the John Hood Memorial Scholarship, and it goes around to one state in Australia every year. And it just so happened that the year that I wanted to go, the scholarship was in South Australia, which is where I'm from originally. And yeah, I was fortunate enough that myself and one other received a scholarship to go over, and yeah, we kind of went from there. So I ended up at Oakmont Country Club with John Zimmers, who was the superintendent there at the time, who's now at, I think he's at Baltusrol, or anyway. And I did my first 9 months in the States with John at Oakmont, and it was just one of the most intense experiences that I've still to this day probably ever had. It was pretty much 7 months, you know, with 2 months, the first month not being too busy, and probably the last month things quietening down a little bit, heading into the shoulder seasons. But certainly for that summer, it was 90 hours a week, if not more, up over 100 hours a week of work, with, I could probably count the days off I had in that time on one hand. So,
but a great learning experience.
Yeah.
Was that when they were was that before they took all the trees down at Oakmont, or was that after they took the trees down?
I was actually there. Funnily enough, I was there when the last tree was coming down. So
Okay.
they'd pretty much done all of that in the winter before. And I got there in April, so right at the end of their winter, and just the last trees were just coming down, and that's when they entered into their redevelopment after that. So the year I was there, it was being pretty much reconstructed for the 2007 US Open. That was 2005. So yeah, two years before the Open, and the preparations were in full swing.
Who won that? That was Angel Cabrera, was it?
I want to say it was Angel Cabrera. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, have you any idea how they motivated that? Because I think that's. Have you got any? I didn't put that into your questions, but have you got any insight on how their club went about motivating that? Because it's quite extreme, isn't it?
I actually think they were working close. I can't remember the name of the architect. It'll come to me. But they looked at photos from the early 1900s, and early, you know, in the original Oakmont Country Club had no trees. And one of the famous lines from Henry Founds, who was the architect and founding member, was that he could stand on the clubhouse steps and see 17 of the 18 flag sticks. And so they took all those old photos and basically just tried to go back to the origins of the course, and that's what they came up with. So, and now I think to this day they can actually see the 17 flag sticks, and it's a lot more linksy. I think it was only replanted in the 1960s. You know, members and the superintendent came in and went through this big program of planting these oaks and everything else. And yeah, I think the golf course and turf quality has improved vastly because of the tree removal. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's the ultimate motivation, isn't it? Okay, so and then from Oakmont you went down to the Florida swing, probably.
Yeah, so we were on the border of Georgia and Florida at Sea Island Resort, which has Sea Island Resort. It hosts a McGladrey Classic at the end of the year. It might be called something else now, but it was the McGladrey Classic back then. And Sea Island itself, there's about 8 or 9 golf courses, 18-hole golf courses on the one island, which is called St. Simon's Island, not Sea Island. The resort is called Sea Island. And it just lives and breathes golf. Davis Love, it's where Davis Love teaches out of, and he's designed a few of the courses. There's a few pros that play out of there. I think Matt Cooch is one of them. So yeah, it's a massive facility, and yeah, the whole town just lives and breathes golf.
Yeah. Okay. And then from the States, when did you hook up with Emirates Golf Club?
That came quite a bit. I was actually 6 years. There was a space of about 6 years. I came back to Australia after the States, and went back home and still had itchy feet. I hadn't quite scratched the international itch yet, and went over to New Zealand, and that's where I worked on the Nicholas course, and that was all construction. That was at the Kinloch Club in Taupo, and then a little bit more construction at Hamilton Island Golf Club in Northern Australia. Took a little bit of time off and did a bit of travel with some friends after that over to the UK, and ended up getting back into the industry. Wasn't quite ready to leave Europe at the end of my visa, so I ended up finding a job on a golf course in Sweden. So I was working in Sweden, which was a unique experience, working on a golf course with 24 hours of sunlight in the summer. You'd come out to work at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and there'd be guys finishing off on the 18th hole that had started at 3 o'clock in the morning, just playing all night. So yeah, very, very interesting there. But in 2011, Craig Haldane, who most of, I'm sure your viewers will know quite well, Craig had advertised for a position at Emirates, and that was, for me, it was like a dream job. I'd seen and remembered watching the Desert Classic and Tiger winning the Desert Classic, and always just been blown away by the backdrop of the 8th hole, which I now know very well as the 8th hole at Emirates Golf Club. So look, I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. I'll put an application in, and fortunately, because I was in Sweden, Craig coincidentally was going to be in Germany, which was not far away. It was only an hour's flight, and said he wanted to meet, and I'd made the short list, and let's meet up, and so I went and met him at Golf Club Munich Eichenride, which is where they have the BMW over there. So I sat down for a coffee and a conversation with Craig, much like yourself and I are doing now, and it was probably about 20 minutes into that conversation that he told me I had the job, and Um, I'd have to say that was probably a big turning point in my life and certainly my career. You know, going to a place like Emirates with that kind of exposure to the European tour and, two high-profile events and the people that you meet that go with it, it certainly opens up a lot of doors. So, yeah, it was just a real great thing to happen, and as I say, a real turning point for me personally.
Absolutely. It sounds like, I obviously know Craig quite well now, but he plays the role as a mentor to a lot of guys. We had Matt Perry on Friday or Thursday, another, call it a Craig Haldane disciple. But how important do you think it is to have a mentor in your career?
Oh, it's vitally important, and I mean, as much as Craig was certainly is probably my most influential mentor, the one that I've certainly spent the most time with over the years. But I think as well, it's important to have a number of guys like that because I think your management style, when you come out of that, is taken from bits and pieces of many ways of operating, and a few of your own ideas, and moulded to make your unique management style. And certainly Craig's been one of the most influential on me, but there's been some others as well. So
yeah, I've had a few guys on we call it a show. I call it a show now. It's just whatever you want to call it, but the themes that run through it, and having different, being able to move around like you've done, going from Australia, New Zealand, Oakmont, Sea Island, Emirates, Sweden, you pick up such a broad knowledge from different people that you can compile, as you're saying, that you compile to make your own unique, IP.
yeah,
And that's crucial, to not just to learn from one guy or two guys, to try and gather as much as you can.
well, yeah, I think it's also the climates as well. You get around to a whole bunch of different climates, and no matter what the environment throws at you, there's a good chance that you've seen it before. And our job is pretty much dictated by the environment that we work in. So yeah, I think working with as many different turf types, as many different superintendents, in as many different climates, it can only be beneficial. But also understand that you do sacrifice a lot. I did almost 15 years of travelling. You do miss family a lot and things like that. Your old friends tend to kind of drift apart, which happens naturally anyway, I suppose. But it doesn't come without its sacrifices, that's for sure.
No, for sure. What keeps you going then?
Look, well, we're back pretty close to home now, where we are. So I wouldn't class where we are now as travelling as such. We're feeling like we're pretty settled here in Sydney, and I'm certainly the club that I'm at is very supportive, and I feel like everything I did in the years preceding this has got me to where I want to be right now, and I'm very happy with that. So
lovely. Okay, how does managing a golf course in Oz compare to your US, Sweden, Dubai experiences?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. We were just talking about the environment, and I don't think I ever looked at a weather forecast in Dubai. I don't even think they've got a weatherman. It's just sunny and warm all year. You might have had 2 or 3 days of rain for the whole year. So in terms of that, it was pretty easy to there was really going to be no surprises in terms of what the weather was going to do, and I'd say that would be the number one biggest difference. You come to Sydney right now, it's absolutely pouring outside, and I'm tossing up in my head right now whether I'm going to walk in and close the golf course tomorrow, which I don't think has ever happened at Emirates Golf Club. And it happens quite a lot here in Sydney. We get a lot of rain, and our course is, I'm on a tidal course, so we've got lagoons that come in through the ocean, and right now we've got a low pressure system pushing the tide, which comes back up through all of our drainage pipes and into our bunkers. So we have massive flooding problems here. So flooding was not something I had to deal with too much at Emirates.
No, you don't think of Sydney like that. I've never been to Australia, but you don't think of Sydney as being a high rain spot. But I guess it's high humidity.
It gets very humid in the summer. We had one downpour in February this year, which totaled 400 mil in one. Well, actually, it was over 48 hours, 400 mil, which is it was a 1 in 25 year event.
Wow. Yeah, we've had some big ones. We have a lot of rain in South Africa, but I don't think the biggest one we've had here is 125 mils in 45 minutes, but I don't remember that size for such a short period. Robin Dames, is it? Do you know him? Robin
was, I'm not sure if still works for Toro, but Robin was introduced the Lynx operating system to Emirates Golf Club back in 2012, there it is.
Yeah, he's asking if you liked it. So he's asking if you like his product.
Yeah, well, I'm still using it, so there you go. 8 years later.
That's the proof. Proof is in the pudding. Guys, anyone who's watching, feel free to fire questions at Luke. The more the questions come in, the better. Okay, so you've changed, gone back home. You've lost your mentor in any of your places. You're now in charge, right? You're now the boss, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So what's the biggest difference between being second in command and being ultimately in command?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is probably that you really do have to make some unpopular decisions. You can't always be everyone's best mate. When you're second in charge, you're kind of one of the boys, and you can have a little bit of banter, and you're sort of in and getting your hands dirty together, and that it's a different type of relationship, I suppose. And you've kind of got to, when you take that next step up, you do have to step away from that a little bit. You can't be everyone's mate all the time. As much as you want to be liked, you do have to make some unpopular decisions for the betterment of the golf course or the club, and it doesn't always go down very well. But I think the other thing I suppose is that as much as when I was Craig's 2IC, he gave me a lot of leeway to do what I wanted to do, and that gave me a feeling of kind of being in control. But at the end of the day, the buck always stopped with Craig. If he was happy to give me the rope. But if the noose was going to get tied, it wasn't going around my neck.
Sure.
That's the I guess the risk, I suppose, and that's definitely something that I've brought to my management style with my current 2IC now. Is I let him do how he wants to do things. He can do it as long as we have detailed discussions about what his plans are and why and all the rest of it. If I don't agree, then I don't agree. We do it my way, but a lot of the time it's definitely a two-way street.
Yeah, Miss Miracle Flow. Do you know who that is?
Oh, yep.
Who's that?
Yep. Oh, that's just some worldly advice. Not a question.
Lead with your heart, and you'll never make a bad decision. Good stuff.
There you
All
go.
right, so going on from your going to your management now. So you're how do you weigh up the difference between managing the people and managing the turf?
Yeah, it's probably particularly at a private club. I'm about 70% people to turf, 30% out on the golf course, and 70% working on, with people. I suppose would be the best way to put it. But it's not just my staff. It's obviously maintaining relationships with our suppliers and our members. There's a massive lot of communication that needs to come from me and to my committee, Greens Committee in particular, but all committee members, and then just be living reasonably locally in the area. I see members when I'm not at work, so it's even outside of the gates that you still, you still always feel like you're at work a little bit. But, right.
Absolutely. But that's our life in the golf industry. You're part of the community. That's the upside and the downside. Yeah,
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Nicky Curtain, he's the course superintendent at our club here in Silver Lakes. He's asking what your staff complement is on your golf course.
So we go from 13 at this time of year up to 15 or 16, depending on what our budget and what our year's looking like. So from October through to April, we'll have 16. So we'll get some seasonal interns come in, or they're not really interns. We're not a program as such, but seasonal greenkeepers that we bring in over the summer.
And so that's from October through February, is it?
Well, it's 6 months, October through to end of March. Yeah.
Okay. And would you ever get some South Africans over there?
I certainly, I wouldn't say no to I've spoken to some South Africans. This was a couple of years ago. I actually can't remember the guy's name, but something happened with the visa and he couldn't come. But I would certainly welcome any applications from South Africans for sure. Actually, I worked with the first couple of South African, I believe, that came over to Emirates from the Turf Academy were Justin Harrison and Wayne Walker.
Justin's
when they came over.
Yeah, Justin's watching. Justin's watching today, so you can say how's it.
G'day, Justin. How are you, mate?
Yeah, so we're all. I mean, part of the reason or one of the goals of these interviews all the time is just to find opportunities for our students. So we can chat afterwards if you are keen on something like that. I'm always looking to broaden our spectrum of places where our students can get to.
Yeah,
we'll chat after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And if it's not me, there are other clubs in Sydney that are always screaming out for workers. So yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So had Australia changed from leaving to coming back? So often when you leave somewhere and go back to it, it feels like a different place. Did you feel that?
Yeah. No, it does. It does feel like home. It's probably changed as far as the industry goes. It's probably changed a little bit in that there probably isn't as many guys coming through these days, and it is tough to find good quality guys. And not everyone. I think people get to a point in their career where or the way they see it is just being a greenkeeper isn't enough. I have to be a 2IC, or I have to be a superintendent now, or it's or it's nothing. And I was certainly guilty of that. Very aspirational, I suppose, and keen to get my foot in the door as a superintendent sooner rather than waiting. There's probably not as many guys coming through now as there was, say, 10 years ago, but there are a few. We do try to get. I've got about 4 apprentices at the moment, so and they're all local guys. But I've got one from the country as well, so that's probably the biggest thing. And I think if you ask any superintendent in Australia, they'd say the same thing. Is that it's just tough to find good quality guys with a real interest in golf as well.
Okay, all right, and the opportunities in Australia for aspiring superintendents, is there good opportunities?
Yeah, I think there is. It felt for a lot of years that the same guys were in the same jobs for many years, and I think there's a few of the older generation just starting to come to the end of their careers, or retiring, or looking at different areas of the industry. And I think the industry's going through a bit of a transition at the moment with some young supers getting shots at, previously. The guy that I replaced at Manly had been at Manly for 25 years. There's a lot of course supers in Sydney that are the same, that have been there for 25, 30 years. But they all seem to be starting to move on, a few of them. And some young guys coming through.
You're one of the new generation coming through.
One of the new ones, and particularly coming from overseas. There's certainly a little bit of who's this new kid on the block.
But that's a compliment. You've got to say that as a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so Manly Golf Club. Tell us about Manly Golf Club. How is it structured? What sort of golf course is it?
So Manly's it's a Group 1 course, so it's in the top tier of Sydney clubs, without being the #1 club in Sydney, but it certainly punches above its weight in terms of where we sit financially, which is really good. We're one of the only clubs in Sydney with a waiting list. There's probably only 4 or 5 that still have a waiting list, and we're happy to be one of them.
That's unusual these days.
Yeah, it is, and it comes down a lot to our, I suppose, our location. We're only a kilometre from Manly Beach, the famous Manly Beach. We've got quite a few South African members, funnily enough. There's a big section of the membership from South Africa.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's quite a few. So the club was recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, I think 2014 was reconstructed by Thompson and Perrott. So Peter Thompson just passed away last year. So it's 117 years old, the club, and has been in that location for all of that time. So it was obviously pretty dated, and they rebuilt the whole thing. And it's now just outside of the top 100 in Australia, but certainly in terms of membership, very healthy.
Okay, and the grass types in Sydney. What
Probably
do you have there?
Similar to South Africa, I would have thought, in that we have a mixture of. So we'll have cool season greens. So we've got A1 bent grass greens, and warm season fairways and approaches.
Okay, warm season in Australia isn't Kikuyu though, is it? Bermuda, right?
Some clubs do have Kikuyu. Club down the road, we're trying to eradicate it. We get a lot of it coming in, but we're trying to keep it out. We've got Windsor Green, Cooch fairways, and Santa Ana tees and collars.
Okay. All right, cool. That's and Gustav Pitts is asking. I see there is beautiful native grasses, or most of them planted. Are you asking? Were you asking there, Gustav, if there's native grasses? or have you planted them? Similar question, I guess.
They've been planted. The native grasses at Manly have all been planted, but they are all natives. Yeah. Okay. So there was a very strict requirement for the DA, the design application, that all of the grasses needed to be natives and trees and shrubs.
Okay. And your bunker, Michael Schultz has a business down here called Bunker Armour. He has a kind of revolutionary bunker lining. What sort of bunker lining do you have?
That's an interesting question. We have a very poor bunker liner drainage system at the moment. Toward the end of the construction, I think they were trying to save a few costs here and there, and ended up putting bitum, which is, I mean, it's just like a geo cloth. But we're actually, the club's now investing. We've literally just had the project approved last week, so we're going to go ahead with rebuilding with capillary concrete. Which is probably one of his competitors, major competitors.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've tried to do here is just to, be a channel of communication to any of the guys I can put together through this platform. So what I'll do is I'll get Michael to drop you his stuff, and you can have a look.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all.
Okay.
Is it available? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, Michael, is it available in Oz? I think he's got a factory there. Michael, he'll answer in a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so what's your? I know obviously you can't talk about your career moves after Manly. I'm more talking about ideal scenarios. What would be your dream next golf course?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was told by one of my previous mentors, or a guy that I used to work with, is that cool season grasses are all good. You just have to work in some very average climates to manage them. So if I was going to go anywhere, it'd probably be back to warm season greens, but somewhere within Australia. So a little bit, probably a little bit further north. But having said that, if I ended up at Manly Golf Club for the next 20 years, then, so be it. I'd be perfectly happy to do that as well.
So what's the best course in Australia with warm season grasses?
Yeah, good question. Most of the top sort of 20 golf courses in Australia are all cool seasons.
Sandbelt.
Yeah, Sandbelt. Yeah.
Mm.
I'd say probably Royal Queensland would be up there as one of the best. Yeah, there's a few, but Hamilton Island Golf Club, which I was a part of the construction of, that's not a bad spot. If you've ever seen the Whitsunday Islands in North Queensland, it's worth checking out if you're ever after a golfing holiday. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Michael Schultz is saying, he's just busy with an appointment of the agent in Oz. Okay. Right. I've only got a few more, but before I get on to the last few, I just want to ask you a couple of other quick questions. Wine or beer?
Beer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rory or Brooks?
Rory. Yeah.
Okay. And the one we touched on earlier, which we didn't mean to, but trees or no trees?
No trees. 100%.
No trees. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, that would probably be a warm season links course. Get me on one of those. That'd be fantastic.
With no trees.
Yeah.
Lovely. All right. So last couple of things. Thanks a lot for your time today. But what advice would you give students entering the industry now?
Well, I'd say there's a lot of competition for jobs out there, so I think having a point of difference, and whether that be, the fact that you've travelled a lot or you've worked for, you know, some well-known operators and some good operators that have nurtured your progression. I think also making the right moves at the right times. You know, this industry is a lot about timing, which I would imagine most people would agree with that are in it. The first move isn't always the best move. I've got experience with that, but you know, I don't regret any move that I've ever made. But yeah, I think if you're working with a good superintendent, then they should really be helping you move on to that next role, and that's where Craig was, you know, priceless for me. You know, I suppose keeping me grounded and not just running off to anyone that you know, had an opening. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's a theme that's run through all these chats. Is the finding guys who want to grow and push you on to further your career, rather than, you know, all the top guys really want to get their young guys to run their show for them or with them, and then move on. They don't want to hold them back, and that's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, I think so. But also, you don't want to be shipping them out the door within 2 or 3 years either. I think you know, you want to, once you do find that guy or that club or whatever it is, you know, I think the more time you can do there and the more you can take from it, rather than just saying, all right, you know, I know it all now, it's time for me to go. You know, I think the day that you feel like you know everything is the day you need to get out of this industry. I think, you know, that was another one of my points actually, was, you know, for guys, just keep asking questions. You know, always just, yeah, just keep asking. You never know it all. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you get yourself involved with the associations and the education down there?
Yeah, I was well, when I came back, I was on the board of the New South Wales Association. It did become a little bit time consuming for me. I had a lot going on outside of work, with some further study, and just coming into a new job. You know, I probably bit off more than I could chew. So I'd like to get back involved a bit more with the association, now that I'm a bit more settled. But yeah, quite comfortable with my workload at the moment. So
yeah, absolutely. Don't want to push yourself too much. All right, Luke. Thanks very much for your time. Thanks for staying up. You're probably an early bird, so staying up until this time is getting past your bedtime, maybe.
No, it was my pleasure, Andrew. Yeah, really good to catch up with you. And yeah, feel free as well. I'm intermittently on Twitter at Partridge Turf and Manly Golf Club Greens as well. If anyone is interested, and if any of the Turf Academy guys are interested, I don't know what the COVID situation this year is going to be like for international guys coming over. Probably unlikely, but certainly for future years, feel free to get in touch with me at any time.
Yeah, I'll definitely drop you a mail and I'll send you the podcast once it's converted. Yeah, but definitely, I think we had really bad news last night in South Africa that our golf is still closed. Are you open there? Are you playing golf?
Yeah. In fact, we here in New South Wales, we only closed for a couple of days, and then we reopened in 2 balls, and we've recently gone back. In the last 2 weeks, we've gone back to 4 balls. We can only have 10 people inside the clubhouse, but that is changing on June 1st when we can have 50 people in the clubhouse. So we're getting back to a bit of normality. But that's
we're not. We're still we're not allowed to play golf. at all, and for the foreseeable future. They're not let. They told us last night it's closed. We were all waiting there, hoping. We've been closed now for 2 months, completely.
Is that right? Wow. Yeah,
So
Victoria.
I've done 27 interviews in the whole time we've been closed.
Yeah, that's unreal.
Our whole golf industry is shut down. It's scary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, I wish you all the best, and hopefully, they flatten the curve and get the clubs back out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right, Luke. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate
Thanks a lot, Andrew.
giving us an hour of your time. All right, brilliant. Thanks,
you.
Luke.
Bye-bye.
Bye.